So, welcome to part five, and we're still talking about making money. I think I could have made that a separate video, but maybe I will. I mean, this is just to get my ideas out there before I forget them and before I lose my phone or computer. So, once I read 1 Minute Millionaire, I tried to find out how to make money online. So, I read Click Millionaires by Scott Fox, and he mainly talks about how to make money online through like affiliated marketing or selling a product online. So this is for the non-coders, like the non-coders way to make money online, right? I'd also read a book on starting a blog, but that is hard. Like blogging is not easy. You need content. Like forget about getting followers. You need to produce like can you actually produce content for a year, you know? That is extremely challenging. Um, yeah, I think being a content creator is difficult, especially when you're not doing it about current events. I think maybe current events is probably the only way or the easiest way to be a content creator. Like if you're someone who blogs about the news, that's cool. If you blog about maybe fashion, that's cool. But I'm just thinking, like, if you blog about watches, because I do know a bit about watches, I don't think they make models of watches very often, right? So you kind of struggle with content. My point is basically blogging as a stream of income sounds good, but I don't think content creation is uniformly easy for all types of hobbies. Some it is, cooking, yeah, there are infinite recipes which you can steal. Fashion, maybe there's seasons and you can just read GQ or other magazines and regurgitate what they wrote. But other areas are a bit more challenging to write a blog about, like a fitness blog. uh Frankly, I've always found like Men's Health, or what's the other one, there's another fitness magazine, that kind of a con, because I'm like, you've been publishing all these articles like what, since 1950 or something. Meanwhile, if you just read those two books I mentioned, those two books, Convict Conditioning 1 and 2, you'll know everything you need to know about fitness. Like, how many articles have they written, get six pack abs? Like, they probably use that tagline, what, like 100 times. Some like, if the first article was so good, why did they need to write 99 more of those articles, right? So, yeah, but if you think you can, like, keep up and produce a lot of content, go for it. But I think the easiest content is current affairs, like something that keeps happening and you keep commenting on it, right? Yeah, so with Click Millionaires, non-coder, selling stuff online, affiliated marketing, and he lists some people who he's quote unquote coached to make millions or make a lot of money. So it's a very interesting book. It was the follow-up to 1 Minute Millionaire. And next we have Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harvika. This is a popular book. Like even here in Kenya, when I'm walking on the streets or in the supermarkets, I see the book on sale. So I'm like, wow, okay, a lot of people have read this book. Yeah, he just tells you about how millionaires think. And I think he just says one of the main differences between average people and millionaires is just the way that they think. And I think that's 100% true. I think for everyone, right? For everyone that exists, like no matter what field of success it is, whether you're a surgeon, whether you're a philosopher, Whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a businessman, whether you're into IT, whether you're a chef, whether you're an athlete, we all have different mindsets. And part of what separates us is just our mindset, right? And I think uh, it's easy to see that there are obviously some mindsets that millionaires have that others don't. And the mindset is really the easiest to change. Well, I mean, some people, if you want to, then your mindset is easy to change. So personally, I'm not a fan of communists. Almost every person I encounter on the internet is a communist. So they're like, oh, billionaires should not exist. And to me, that's a very dumb form of reasoning. Because if you were born in like the 50s, you'd be like 72 by now, and you'd have lived your whole life just cursing billionaires instead of trying to learn how to get rich. So you'll just die the way you are, you'll just die poor. And that's a funny thing. If you ask most people whether they want to be rich or not, they lie to you and say no. Like if you're to hand them the money, sure, they'll do it. But if you ask them, do you want to start a business, they'll say no, right? So I don't want to make this video too political, but I'm just trying to say no matter what you choose to endeavor in, what endeavor you choose, the mindset is important. So this book is important. Uh, the Definitive Book of Body Language. This was probably the first book that I bought from a bookstore. Again, when I was young, when I was like 16. Uh, This book is again one of the few books I have hard copy, because 50th Law I borrowed it from a friend, right? Very, very life-changing book. I think there's another book called What Everybody Is Saying by a former FBI person. People say it's good. I haven't read it, but I think the Definitive Book of Body Language is amazing. It is really wow. Like out of all the stuff I've said so far, or all the books on people aside from MBTI. Like I talked about how to read people's faces, talked about how to read people's body structures. This is the one you need to read. This is the one that's the most scientifically accurate, that isn't really disputed, because these guys have like PhDs in psychology or something. So, they say 70% of communication is body language, and this is just so amazing. There's one lie spotting technique with body language that's there that, oh, it's just the best lie spotting technique ever. I guess it's terrible if you're a liar, because it means you'll be able to lie to people who understand body language if you understand it. But yeah, I do not regret buying this book. It is phenomenal. Definitely a top 10 book for me. One of the best written books ever. Like, when you read a book on a subject, sometimes it's either one, it's not that well written, or two, it's not very definitive. But this book literally lives up to the title. It's definitive. So, for example, I have like maybe 5 to 10 books on money, right? So it means that no single book on money was enough for me. But when it comes to body language, this book literally is definitive. It literally tells you everything you need to know about body language. But there are many books written on body language. I think read at least one. Doesn't have to be this one, but read at least one. Yeah. Okay. Uh, Subliminal by Leonard. I don't want to butcher his last name. I copy pasted that name, so that should be the correct name. Really, really, really incredible book. It talks about how our subliminal mind works. Apparently, I think he says, like, for example, if you have the same name as someone, they're more likely to like you. Just subliminal things that if you're ever presenting something, try to go either first or last, because those are the only two people actually remember. Long while since I read that book. I should reread that book, but I have a long reading list at the moment. Not very long, to be honest. I'm still finishing the book on commercial real estate. I'm also reading a billion dollar app, and I'm also reading in The Intelligent Investor. And I want to read Interpreting Financial Statements by Warren Buffett, as well as the same, but I think there's the same title, but for Benjamin Graham. So I still have some books, and I also want to read other books on like negotiation and stuff. So I don't really have that much time to reread Subliminal, but read it. Definitely, it's one of those books you wouldn't really see get recommended by a lot of people because they don't know much about it. But if you want to understand how a subliminal mind works, read the book. Read the book. Very, very interesting book. Definitely, in terms of underrated. Like when you're recommending books to someone, you want to recommend one, good books, but two, the good element of a list or a good element of a recommender is he recommends to you something which you probably would not have heard of, right? So take YouTube, for example. What are some of the books which you'd commonly hear about? You probably hear about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. So if someone recommends to you those books, like, yeah, it's all well and good, but you've seen them before. But this is one of those books, like in terms of books that do not get recommended enough, this is one of them, right? Then next is Predictably Rational. A while since I read the book, but it basically claims that human beings are irrational, but predictably so. So if you've ever studied economics, whether formally or informally, I've done it both formally and informally. Like they say, one major flaw, I think, well, when I studied it, it was like the basic economics. They say one major flaw of economics is assuming people act rationally, but the thing is, they don't, right? So that kind of throw off a lot of economic predictions. But this book isn't about economics, it's about psychology. So I think there were so many experiments that I can't even remember, right? I can't even remember. But basically, one of them was it's like you have two dictionaries. One has like 9,900 words, the other one has 2,000 words. So if you present people just the option to buy the dictionary with 900 words, like you don't show them the 2,000 word dictionaries, you'd find most people would just buy it for the price. But if you put the 2,000 word dictionary next to the 900 word dictionary, suddenly 900 words doesn't sound like a lot, so people would buy the other dictionary, right? And then it also talked about buying something. Like if you were to offer someone a discount, like let's say you have a product, like I think they said a chocolate, and you offer it for $2 versus offering a larger product, like maybe, I don't know, like a TV or something for 50. Let's say a TV costs, I'm converting currency in my head. Let's say it costs $800, but the person offers you the currency at the person offers you the TV at $400. You'd find that if that was the case, people would buy the TV. But if you offer the candy, you're told you can choose the candy for free, or you can choose the TV for $400. That's when I think people would choose the candy, right? So just because it's free doesn't mean you're saving as much money as you would when you buy something or something like that. And if that example wasn't clear because I didn't say it that well, he talks about uh what did he had a term for it, but basically it's like you should have an item on the menu. If you're in a restaurant, have an item on the menu that's really expensive, so that it justifies all these other items. So, like, if you have one item on your menu that's $30 and the rest of your menu items are like, $18 to $25, people will be like, wow, this lobster or this turkey is really expensive. This $18 one is much cheaper, right? But if you didn't have it, people would think your menu overall is expensive. So it's just some of these mind tricks. I have to use the word tricks because it's a for kids video that basically people use and just illustrating how we think, right? So Predictably Rational is also good. And now that I've mentioned that book, there is another one I want to mention. Daniel Gilbert, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Stumbling Upon Happiness. The best book you will read on happiness. Well, unless you're a hippie. I read it way back when I didn't even think about happiness. I've read more books on happiness since, all of them garbage. But this book was not really telling you how to be happy, but it was more giving a scientific evaluation of what happiness is. And it was saying, for example, you need to watch his TED Talk because he's like an evolutionary psychologist. Again, top 10 book for sure. I mean, how can I have a top 10 when there's 60 books? But anyway, top 10 book for sure. I know I've said that probably more than 10 times, but top 10 book for sure. He gives so many examples about things. Like he says, if I tell you to picture spaghetti, right? Just picture some spaghetti, then chances are you're probably not picturing just spaghetti. You're also picturing it on a plate, maybe some sauce, maybe a fork and knife, maybe some meatballs, maybe the table, maybe the chair, maybe, I guess, also the smell. So he's basically saying that some of the reasons we're unhappy is because when we picture getting things, we picture all these other things surrounding that one thing, right? That aren't necessarily intrinsic to that thing. So there's this joke meme that says how, I mean, my Wi-Fi isn't working right now. It's like being buff for a guy, expectations versus reality. So in the expectations, all the women are checking him out and they're like, yeah, enter me, breed with me. But the reality is it's other guys who are like, hey, wow, like how'd you get your quad so buff, man? Nice biceps, right? So I think basically what it's trying to say, like if a man wants to become buff, he doesn't just picture being buff, he pictures like the attention he'll get from women. And you see, that's not necessarily intrinsic to being buff. Like it's not a scientific correlation. Like it's not like a physical property of being buff. But in a more abstract way, it's like when you picture being a manager or being in university or having a degree, all of those things, what you intrinsically picture versus the reality. I mean, what you picture versus the intrinsic reality could be very different. So you might picture, yeah, college, wild parties, meeting so many friends, and you find out that doesn't really happen. Or like, yeah, accounting, I'm gonna learn all these cool things, but you find out, oh, that didn't really happen. Your course wasn't what you thought it would be, right? Or like, yeah, I'm gonna have my own restaurant or my own TV show. Then by the time you start a restaurant, like it looks nothing like what you thought it would in your head, nothing, right? I mean, hey, sometimes we even think that way about our partners, right? Like when we get married, we're like, wow, when I pictured a wife 5 years ago, this or a husband, this is not exactly what I pictured. So yeah, I think I'll stop there and continue because I don't like videos being more than 20 minutes.